So happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us. So how are you, Guillaume? How are you, Ketan?
Hi, nice
I'm great.
to all. Good to
Hi,
see
Ketan.
you.
Hi, Audrey.
That's great. So let's start with maybe a quick round of introduction, and then we'll go into the topic of today. Guillaume, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Guillaume. I'm based in Paris, but I lived for 13 years in New York. I was the chief product officer and a leadership team member at Town. Spent basically the last decade building products for artists to grow their careers and fans to discover more music. And I'll be joining a new company on Monday, actually, called Jelly Smack, which is kind of a shared mission, except that it's for video creators. It's a company that helps video creators build their career. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Exciting news, right?
Yeah. Actually, the first person I tell publicly. So.
Okay. Congrats. That's great.
Thank you.
And Ketan, what about you?
Yeah. Hi. I'm from Clarivate. So Clarivate helps innovators accelerate the pace of innovation. Our vision is that we believe that human ingenuity can improve or change the world and improve our future. So at Clarivate, we help innovators with intellectual property, software, as well as software related to competitive intelligence and research. And in my particular role, I lead the product team related to life sciences, where we help life sciences customers like pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies to make new medicines. And I lead a group of about 14 product managers, looking forward to the discussion around it. Oh, I should mention also that in my role at Clarivate, I'm also on the Diversity Council, which is something that we set up earlier this year to really hold ourselves accountable in terms of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. So really passionate about this subject and looking forward to the discussion.
Great. Yeah, we'll talk more about this topic specifically. Thank you, Ketan. So on my side, I'm Audrey. I'm currently the CPO at Scaleway. So Scaleway is a cloud service provider, European-based. And we provide a lot of great cloud products to our users. So if you consider anything around adding new cloud products to sustain your apps, take a look at Scaleway and you'll see we do a lot of things. And on the diversity and inclusion topic, it's very dear to my heart, and it's something that's very important at Scaleway too. We have a very important program around this, and our head of HR is really very strong in putting some of the best practices in place in the company. So I'm very happy to be able to discuss this topic with you, Guillaume and Ketan, and see how it can be done in product teams specifically, where we know that in the more technical the teams are, sadly, sometimes the less diverse they can be. Just a few housekeeping items before we really jump into the discussion. There is a Q&A tab, so we're very happy to answer your specific questions. So feel free to write them down, and I'll keep that in mind and an eye on them, so I can interact with Ketan and Guillaume based on the questions you ask. So I would say the first thing that's quite important when we talk about diversity in inclusion is, why should we care, right? Why is it a topic that is worth being mentioned and worth being worked on by a company? And what does it bring to the company when this is well addressed? So maybe Ketan, you can share a bit your views on that.
Yeah, so certainly. One of the things that's very interesting is, there's been a lot of research done on this, and diverse companies, especially those that have diversity at all levels within the company, have shown to be more performant than non-diverse companies. They have better results, they have better market cap, better revenues, better sales, etc. And I think the main message behind that is, if you're having a diverse diversity as part of your culture, it means that you are not leaving talent outside of your company, right? You're inclusive. You're bringing in all the best minds, the best ideas, the best ways of thinking, and you're not really basically being just single-minded in that respect. So diversity doesn't just mean diversity in terms of gender, ethnicity, but it also means diversity of thought and of ideas, right? And so I think that is what really brings the performance. And as we'll discuss today, I mean, there's certain things that we need to kind of do to kind of really help elevate the conversation with diversity, because typically it tends to be kind of like a corporate sustainability objective, and it's just like a page in the brochure, and nobody really does anything. So what we're trying to do at Clarivate is really trying to take some actions and hold ourselves accountable to right at the top levels, including the CEO and the board as well, on diversity.
Yeah, and I think diversity is a point, and then inclusion goes with it, because you can have so much effort and spend so much energy in attracting great diverse talents, and then they feel not included in the company culture, or they have weird moments because things are really not designed for them, and so they feel bad sometimes, and they can even leave. And when you realize the amount of energy it was to have them in the first place in the company, it's really a shame not to be able then to create the environment where they can thrive. So it's really both sides of the same coin. And maybe Guillaume, if you want to add some points around this.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more than what Ketan said. I mean, it's about performance, company performance. It's also about creativity. The more point of view, you don't want to have an army of clones of people with like this groupthink mentality. You don't want to be welcome to Gattaca, right? You want to have people that confront their point of view and develop a certain, empathy because of it. And actually, specifically for product, empathy is very important, because when you're a product manager, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the user persona. So, I think it's just something that's a must have now in any organization.
Yeah. And if you don't do it, you have a lot of blind spots, and you don't design an inclusive product in the end. So
yeah, and you, as Ketan said, you're going to restrict yourself in terms of like the pool of talent that you can tap into, right?
Which is another.
Yeah, but the risk of just focusing on diversity and not inclusion is that people can feel like there's a disjointed culture. You can have like cliquish behavior as a defense mechanism. Because they work as like small community within the company. So it's very important to have a shared sense of mission and a shared system of values. In our case, for Benson, it was very easy because it's about helping artists grow their career. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about passion for music. So obviously, this is something that transcends, differences. I mean, who doesn't like Bob Marley? You know what I mean? Like, even regardless of your religion and political opinion, right? But in some other companies, that could be more challenging, I'm sure.
Yeah, that it can be. And sadly, when we look at the numbers, we're still far from being a very totally diverse industry. So there are a lot of things that can be done to, as you mentioned, Ketan, elevate the discussions and go out from the basics and try to go into more nuanced things. So maybe we can talk more details around how the diversity and inclusion topic is really promoted in your companies and especially in your teams too. What did you do? What process? What culture habits? Like, what's the concrete things you have in place that maybe people listening can take as tips if they want to think about this topic, or if they want to try new things because they struggle.
So maybe I can start then. in Clarivate, we're a fairly sizable company. We've got just over 10,000 employees, and so we've got like it's quite corporate, but we've got like a diversity council which we've set up earlier this year. We've then set up a diversity scorecard, so really concrete actions that we're going to take around diversity. So that's like things like, for example, our CEO has signed up to the Women's Empowerment Principles, which is a UN Compact statement that you will promote women in the workplace and things like that. And so we've signed up for that, and then to enable those kinds of things, leading from the front, our CEO is pretty good. So for example, we were hiring people in India for engineering positions, and we wanted to have a 50-50 ratio, but it quickly turned out that as we were hiring, we were going to basically just have like a 95% male. So what happened was that at the middle of the hiring process, we just stopped hiring male candidates, and we had a concerted campaign to go after female engineers in all the different colleges, and we had like women in STEM ambassadors and things like that. So that really helped us to get the ratio up, and it's like 45-55 now. So it's we have a lot of women graduates, and what we've done next year, we're planning to do something called Clarivate Futures, which is to completely redesign our campus recruiting in order to have more diversity and inclusion embedded in the hiring of graduates from colleges, from technical colleges and things like that. So that's one concretely way that we're doing it. But also just on a personal level, when I'm hiring for my team, I think it's really important that we sort of push back on like our HR team. If they give me 3 CVs of middle-aged white men, I send them back and say, look, can you do something here? Because we're not gonna get diversity if we end up with a whole company full of middle-aged men. So
yeah, and I guess the pipe is really something important. From my experience, I feel building a diverse pipe is like the first step towards building a diverse team, because if in the pipe you always have people that are from the same group, you hire people from the same group. Something I did that I find very effective is to work with agencies that are really specialized in helping hiring diverse teams. So in Paris, for example, there is one great agency that's called the Alliance, and they're really specialized in hiring diverse people, so women, but from minority in ethnicity groups, or even sexual orientation. It can be on a lot of different aspects, and then you have a pipe with more diverse people, and so that's only then that you can potentially start to hire more diverse people. So I don't know, Guillaume, if you have other tips.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Alliance, because Jerry Smack is works with them. They also mentioned a company called ADA. It's the equivalent, I guess, of Girls Who Code. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Yeah, and ADA is a programming school for women.
For women, I mean, for us, the challenges are slightly different. I mean, it's a much smaller company, 100 people, at max. So the D&I initiative was held at the leadership level, right? So it's not just a product or HR initiative. It was actually part of our strategic framework that we called the OGSM, that was shared with the entire company. And one of the goals was to build a one company culture, meaning being diverse and inclusive, where everyone can feel like they can express their opinion and feel respected and valued, and have a shared common sense, of mission. And that, is actually one of the goals that every employee has to hit in a way, So it's part of the people review too. We also did, some anonymous people survey where people can express exactly, like in a safe way, how they feel about, the company. So that's one way to do it too. And obviously, closing the gender gap is a bit of an issue in product, because, it used to be very much about, engineers becoming product managers. And we know that in engineering, there's a gender gap. So one way to address this is to explain to people that to become a product manager, you don't have to be an engineer, right? You can be a product designer, you can come from business, you can be a marketer, And so that opens up kind of the funnel of people that will apply. That helps. But I think the most critical point, in my opinion, is to have like a kind of a, I don't quite like this term because it discounts their skills, but role models within the company, meaning like, women that are at leadership positions, that are part of the leadership team that can head like engineering team or data science team. And at Benjamin, actually, the person who was running most of our engineering and data team was a woman. And I think, that shows that it's you're not only going to be hired if you apply to HR or marketing position. I mean, you can be a data scientist, and engineer, and product manager, and feel like you're going to have a fair shot at it. Yeah. Now, in larger companies, obviously, you have to source specifically, and work with talent. But
yeah, I think at Scaleway we are somewhere in between Clarivate and JDSmack. We're like 400 people right now.
Well, actually, Benzintown is 100 people, but JDSmack is much bigger. It's 1,200. So it's actually the times are different.
You'll see it from
so they do
bigger
sourcing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bigger perspective. So
yeah. And I feel there is something too about the more junior, about how do we give the how do we show even at high school that women can go out for more engineering studies. And I was reading a study just this week that was saying that a lot of very good women in high school tend to think they don't have what it takes to become an engineer, because they are less self-confident because of even what they see from being an engineer, right? They see a lot of then very diverse groups in those kind of postgraduate classes, and so they tend to already drop the engineering and potentially what will get them in touch with tech quite early on. So I think there is something true about and that can be done, and that's more maybe on a personal level, right? Go discuss with high schools to show what it can be as a woman, and it's as you mentioned, Guillaume, important to be sometimes taking this suit of a role model, which can be a bit weird because it's like, what does it mean just that I've tried and I've succeeded? So yes, and at the same time, it just shows some young women that it's okay, it can work, and it can be something that's even quite fulfilling in a professional career. And just knowing that sometimes can open chakras to go for this kind of path. So maybe we can look just quickly at a few questions. We have 2 questions right now. So one around building startup. When you build a startup, you often draw on your known network so you can ship faster. If you don't have a diverse network, this can lead to a fairly non-diverse team. How do you balance the speed with the diversity?
You want to take this?
Yeah, we can start.
I can
So
take
you
this.
guys
I've bootstrapped a bunch of products on my own, so started from scratch. I think, what helped was to enable remote work quite, easily. I mean, it sounds like cliche now because of COVID, but it used to be a thing. And because then you can have people from different locations, from different nationalities, like you widen the net in terms of like who you can work with. And I think, the best way to have a very diverse team is to have like different nationalities or people living in different locations, because it's just you have to empathize and you have to respect other people's values, and it's just it makes it much more organic. So if you can do that, then that's great. That would be so being remote first. I think is a great way to enable diversity. Now it hurts inclusion in a way. It's harder to connect with people because body language on Zoom is harder to read, because trying to be funny on Slack and double-edged sword.
Can be weird.
Careful with that.
Yeah.
So you need like FaceTime. And by the way, go to live concerts or, go to sports event. I mean, we enjoy music together. It's a great way to do an offsite. It's a great way to connect with people at other levels. But I think being remote first helps.
Yeah, and I think it's what you mentioned in the question, like the balance thing is how do you stretch a bit from outside of your network, trying to ask for people that maybe know other people and expand a bit your network to level 2, level 3, or whatever.
I'm sorry. There's just so many
Go ahead.
online networks now. I mean, we connected Audrey through French CPOs. We actually met in person just once, but we exchanged to this Slack, community of product leaders and, in France. So you can I'm sure there are ways to connect that way, right? To network that way, to go out of your own network by just entering those online communities, whether it's on Discord, on Slack, you can find it. And, Plateau is one community of product managers and engineers, and that's great, by the way, what they're doing. So there are multiple ways to do it now.
Yeah, and I feel there are more initiatives around having specific groups to say, here you can find more diverse people, like VCs. Now they try to have more VCs that are maybe more easy to access for female founders, and you can have groups of, as you mentioned, in Paris there is another group which is called Women in Product, where we have a lot of women that do product management in Paris, and we're really a lot in this Slack group. And so you have more of these things, and it's first thing is to look for it a bit, and then once you get a step in, it becomes far easier because you have access to a broader, diverse network. So maybe the next question is, what is your take on bringing more balance to other diverse non-minority groups like LGBT or people with disabilities?
So I can attempt that one. So we have at Clarivate, we have these things called colleague resource groups, which is like a community within, and we give them a really cool name, and it's like a community. So, for example, we have Spectrum, which is our LGBTQ community. We have another one called Vibrant, which is for ethnic minorities, and they meet regularly, and it's part of the inclusion piece, right? Which is, hey, first of all, we're welcome to Clarivate. You can be included in this community or that community, and you can be members of multiple of these groups. And they have regular events. So we have we have the Spectrum event is really cool, where we make these really impressive rainbow cakes, right? It's really nice, and we will get together and celebrate. And then we Vibrant, we have like a book club and things like that, where we're reading about things to do with racism and things like that. And it's really good because it really educates the community, not just people who are ethnic minorities, but the people that are outside of that group as well. So that's one part of it. And then those colleague resource groups can help to share the networks beyond Clarivate, because they have their communities outside of Clarivate, right? So they can actually bring in people and recommend people to work here. And one of the key things that our CEO says is, we want Clarivate to be a place where you would want your best friend to work. You would be comfortable inviting your best friend to apply for a job here, right? So that's the kind of company we want. So that's kind of built into the culture, and it's one way of sort of including those other communities.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have to admit that I haven't seen so much processes around that yet in the companies I've worked for. Maybe we've not reached the size where we addressed it yet, or it's being in process. So maybe we can take one last question that has a few votes, and that's going to be, I think, creating some discussions. It's about how do we work on the unconscious bias during interview process, because unconscious biases tend to affect diverse candidates from being selected. And so even if you have built the pipe, as we mentioned, then the diverse candidates always get rejected. So I don't know who wants to start on this one.
Right.
So we just had I can just say a few words. We had a unconscious bias training in our company to really help with things like just general unconscious bias. But then we had a special one for inclusive hiring practices. And there it went down to, like, for example, how as early on as developing the job description, right? You can basically make the job description more inclusive. There were times when people used to say things like, hey, you need a PhD to be in this science role, or you need to be from a certain school, like Ivy League school, or these kinds of things were included in the job description, and that really just cuts off a whole bunch of people. The other thing that we learned is to make the job description more simple and less specific, so that you get more diversity in the candidate pool, because people need to see themselves in that role, right? So they don't. If you have like I've seen jobs where it's like a laundry list of every single thing, and they're looking for like a unicorn, which doesn't exist. Like nobody has all of these capabilities, so why even put that in the job description? So have it so that you have your main things that you want, that you're looking for, and then keep it very open, and then you'll get a diverse slate of candidates. And then when you're interviewing, be careful with, like, I mean, we had the training, so be careful with jokes and all those kinds of things, and making sure that you're not that you're respecting the community or the place where the person is from, and just be conscious of that, right? So, I think a lot of people trying to, do an interview, they want to help make the candidate feel comfortable, right? So, like one of the videos that we had in this training was really interesting. There's a black candidate, and the interviewer was like, "Hey, yo, man, how's it going?" And like, trying to make the guy comfortable, but like speaking in that kind of language. Trying to establish a rapport with the candidate, but that went down wrong, right? So it's like just be yourself, interview the candidate. Don't try and tell a joke or something that you think will make that person feel comfortable, because it may make them feel the opposite, right? Make them feel uncomfortable. So those are just some things that we had in our
I feel training is something important and very interesting, and I've heard a lot of companies having hiring managers go through trainings in the past few months. I think something that you can do on top of trainings, and it's to have diverse interviewers. So it's not about unconscious bias really, but it's about having a diverse team meeting the candidate, and so each one will have his own unconscious bias, of course, but it will be quite complementary, and the person will feel different. I know that as a woman, when I'm interviewing only white men teams, I'm sometimes a bit afraid of, okay, what does it mean if I join the company, right? So having a process where you can already create the show the diversity and inclusion you're working on in your company, I think can help and kind of be a shortcut to the unconscious bias problem.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about unconscious bias is that they're unconscious, right? So you need someone external to assess the way you recruit people to give you that perspective. So that's one way. One way to do it is to have multiple people interview the same person, then share feedback, or watching someone else interview someone and then helping get better, or hiring an external team. I think the Alliance does that too. The thing with unconscious bias is it's so hard to how do you say, like, the best way to address this is to be properly trained, basically, right? So you have to have a proper recruitment process where people, they follow kind of not a script, but like they know the boundaries of what should be in a meeting, what should not be in a meeting, and it's properly timed, and they're like the questions that make sense, that let the candidates speak and feel like they go and open up and express themselves, and they're not here to be judged, right? They're applying for a job, and it's a conversation. It's not like it's not something else, basically.
The objective hiring goals is very important. Like one thing, I think everyone's done this. One thing that I used to do is like hey, if you establish a good relationship or rapport with the client, with the candidate, you think, okay, I like this guy, I can imagine working with this guy or this girl, and you're automatically saying, all right, this person's like made it to the top of my list, right? But having that objective goals about the interview process. So what we've got is like, multiple interviewers interview the same candidate and they're looking for different things. And then they basically ask questions to probe those things. So for example, you're probing technical skills, or you're probing, customer relationship skills, or you're probing discovery skills, right? And you're basically probing, each person is probing for a different thing. And then you all get together afterwards and you discuss the candidates with the objective view of, did you find out information about this candidate in this role and this thing and this thing? And then you have a matrix and you really say, okay, actually this candidate was the best candidate, even though maybe I didn't get on with them personally, but in terms of objective things, they met all the criteria for all the things that we want.
Yeah, it's the scorecard system, right? You have a very clear list of things you're going to be looking for with the candidate, and it shouldn't be. And I think it's the tricky thing is when you ask too much the interviewers to be like, would you get along with this person, or the famous cultural fit thing that can sometimes turn out to be more like, is this person like me more than is this person the person
can do, will do, and what they can do, what they aspire to do, what they will do, and how they fit for the role, right? That's really the basic.
Yes. Yes, go ahead. We're
I just want to put out, like, since I know we have quite a wide audience, that we, everyone, please connect me on LinkedIn if you're looking for a job. We have 400 positions open, a lot in the data science and product management. And it's not just product, it's 400 total across the company, across functions. So feel free to connect. And thank you, Audrey, for everything you're doing for the French ecosystem to close the gender gap. And thank you, Plateau, for this opportunity to speak. And thank you, Ketan, for sharing your experience. We appreciated the talk. And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for being there. I see there are questions that have popped up and we have no time more to answer them. The good news is there is a lounge. So when you're in the main stage, you have a lounge in the tab on top. So we are happy to continue the discussion, at least with Ketan. Guillaume, can you join us too for the lounge? Or? Yeah. Okay. So we'll go in the lounge and be there to answer the questions remaining if you want. So thank you very much for all the questions, and I really hope it helped and give you tips on things you can either look for in the company you're joining to make sure it's diverse, or put things in place to create a more diverse company if you're in a leadership position. So thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, Ketan, and have a great day, everyone.